Good afternoon, distinguished members of this committee and esteemed colleagues and members of the public. Welcome to your Senate chamber. We are back from recess and the time is now 12:10 p.m. and it is still February, I'm sorry, 2:10 p.m. It's been a long day, long 2 days. And it is still February 16th, that much I'm sure of, 2024. This morning we conducted the confirmation hearing of Dr. Glenda Sablon George, nominated by Governor Palacios last December 15, 2023, to serve as a member of the Healthcare Professional Licensing Board, representing healthcare professionals. We will now go back to item number 3 of the agenda, and I call on Mr. Oscar Babauta and Mr. Francisco M. Rabaliman to join us in the chamber. Just to let everyone know, we are streaming live on local cable channel 23 and in my legislature's Facebook and YouTube page. If for any reason we need to take a break or a recess, Facebook will continue to stream live. Mr. Babauta, you may proceed when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I apologize for the absence this morning as I have another board membership to tackle with this morning. And it is a lengthy one. However, I understand the public hearing this morning went well, and for that, the administration extend their deepest appreciation to each and every one of you. Good afternoon, members. Chairwoman Babauta, Senator Selena, Roberto Babauta, chairperson. For the record, my name is Oscar M. Babauta, the Special Assistant for Administration under the Office of the Governor. On behalf of Governor Arno I. Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David M. Apateng, who is currently the acting governor, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before you once again today or this afternoon. I'm here to introduce and present the Governor, Lieutenant Governor's nominee for the Secretary of the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs, Mr. Frank M. Revoleman, by fondly called as Anki Ortico. By this time, you should have in your possession his impressive and extensive resume describing his professional experiences throughout many institutions and offices of our government in the past and present. Mr. Revoleman's exceptional service record spans over 29 years, which he has made significant contributions to the Sinamay government. His extensive and expertise have been instrumental in driving positive changes and progress in various areas. His impressive resume showcases his remarkable achievements in the past and present, and his unwavering commitment to serving our people once again. I know that he stands ready to answer to any inquiry you might have for him this afternoon. On a personal note, I'm just sad that I lost a good friend, a colleague of mine in the office, but for the betterment of our people of the Commonwealth. And I applaud him for accepting the administration's call to serve our people in a wider and special and unique department, which is the food stamp, manamku, manhobin, as DYS, then even childcare para mamulan nini. Dan manhobin siya na famagun. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Patang placed their complete trust and confidence in Mr. Revolman to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. We humbly and respectfully request your full support and favorable decisions in confirming our nominee or the nominee of the Commonwealth, for that matter, in the next few or certain few weeks. Thank you, and Jesus Masi Giliso, for the opportunity to bring my buddy up to present to all of you so that you may inquire about any pertinent information you might have. So I wish you good luck, my brother, and wish you you're not confirmed. And enjoy your weekend. Oh, and enjoy your weekend, Chair and members of the Senate.
Jesus Masi, Senor
I'll see you at the
Babata.
next appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babata. And just to formally introduce the members of this committee, to my left, I have Senator Paul A. Mangonia, who chairs the Public Utilities, Transportation and Communications Committee in the Senate. To my right, we have Senator Corina L. Magofnia. She chairs the Resources, Economic Development and Programs, as well as Gaming Committee. And to her right is Senator Donald M. Mangonia from Rhoda. He chairs the Fiscal Affairs Committee as well as the Health, Education, and Welfare Committee. Also, to introduce our professional staff from the Legislative Bureau, we have first and foremost our counsel for this afternoon, Counsel Antoinette Villagomez. The legislative assistant assisting the committee and assigned to this committee is Mr. Devin Macaronis. We have our Sergeant at Arms to keep order and decorum at all times in the chamber. We have Sergeant Ben Terlahi. And to ensure that our meeting today is officially digitized and recorded, we have our IT assistant, Mr. Delbert Camacho. Welcome again to your Senate chambers. I will now open the floor for public comments. And for those who wish to make public comments, please state your name and the entity you represent so we can properly record it. The floor is now open.
Half a day, Tiro. Then good afternoon, Chair Babauta and honorable members of this JGO committee. My name is Margarita Torres Aldan. I am the administrator for the Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as Food Stamp. So today I am here in support of Mr. Francisco Mareham Rabauliman to be the secretary for the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. I'm going to start by talking about his vast, as SAA said, experience, management, and leadership skills to be secretary of DCCA. As guidance counselor and state voc ed coordinator of the public school system and director of finance, grants, and administrative services at NMTI, he promoted a culture for both academic achievement and employability. He advocated and empowered the Carolinian community to have a strong voice, promoting the Rifalawash language, tradition, and culture when he was the executive assistant at the Carolinian Affairs Office. At the Bureau of Environmental and Coastal Quality, under his leadership, the Bureau enhanced enforcement and updated regulations for water quality standards and harmful substance and hazardous waste management. His array of experience in professional boards and committees highlights his commitment and dedication to our community for children and adults with special health needs, post-secondary education, workforce, and the economy of our CNMI. He not only is or was a member in these boards and committees, both local and regional, but served in an officer capacity, be it chairman, vice chairman, treasurer. But actually, he never served as secretary, so now he will. His community involvement includes the American Red Cross, which we know is very, very vital, very critical in our response to disasters, United Carolinians Association, NMTI, and yes, the church. Be mindful that the divisions or programs that are under the umbrella of the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs functions in the areas of human and social services, historic and landmark conservation and preservation, preservation of Chamorro and Carolinian heritage and traditions, public arts, and sports programming. There are 10 divisions or programs. I hope I'm right on that one. um, under DCCA. Mr. Rabauliman's experiences and community involvement over the years aligns with all the functions of these divisions or programs. And honestly, I just want to say that I have known Mr. Rabauliman, Tick, for me many, many years. He is family to me, and I'll end it at that. Lastly, honorable members of this JGO committee, this is what I want you to know about Mr. Rabauliman. The USDA Food and Nutrition Services is the grantor agency for NAP. The FNS officials requested for a meeting sometime last month. The officials requested for the meeting to be on our Saturday or Sunday here in the CNMI. And of course, me, being the grantor, I was already agreeing to Saturday, but not Mr. Rabauliman. He informed the FNS officials that Saturdays and Sundays will not work for us. It has to be our Monday or any other weekday, but not the weekend, making it so. Thus, yes, the meeting was held on our Monday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 5 p.m. in the East Coast. With that said, yes to the confirmation of Mr. Francisco Mareham Rabauliman as DCCA Secretary. Thank you so much.
Entusiasmase, Senora. The floor is still open for public comments.
Greetings, Madam Chair and honorable members of this committee. My name is Lorena Lorin Rabaliman. I am the daughter-in-law of Mr. Francisco Merham Rabaliman, also known as Frank. I'd like to thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you today on his behalf. Has been in many different leadership positions, but the one thing I admire about him the most is his leadership of his family. Frank, along with his wife Marcy, have raised 4 children and are blessed with 9 beautiful grandchildren. Frank is very driven and he strives to ensure that his children become leaders in their professional careers and in their households. Frank may seem strict, but he is fair and seeks solutions rather than simply pointing out flaws to get his point across. My husband and I have been in family conversations with him about the importance of having an education, maintaining finances, raising a family, and life in general. Based on these experiences, I have never felt that my family and I were ever placed in the wrong, but we learned how to improve, adapt to changes, and resolve situations that we may encounter in the future. I give my full support to Frank because I believe that he will be a great asset to DCCA as the secretary, not only for his past professional experiences, but for his passion and understanding and his ability to overcome obstacles with good judgment. I kindly request your favorable consideration of his nomination. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Rabauliman. The floor is still open for public comments.
Hafide Tiro and Talofa. My name is Tiava Aldon To'omata, and I would like to thank this humble body for allowing me to testify on behalf of my uncle, Francisco M. Rabalaman, also known as Uncle Frank or Uncle Tick, who the current administration appoints to head the Department of the Community and Cultural Affairs, also known as DCCA. The CNMI needs a champion who will rise to the challenge and bring true meaning to being a united Chamorro and Refalowesh native. We need our natives to feel proud of who they are and strive to be the land's best stewards. Uncle Frank is a native Refalowesh who left the CNMI to pursue a higher education. He came back to this tiny rock of ours because he considers this place his home. He married a Chamorro woman who happened to be my mother's sister. Culture glues the people to their native homes. Culture, to most of us, is home. DCCA exists for you and for me. It needs a humble and understanding leader who is patient and willing to work with everyone to protect and preserve our identity and bring significant meaning to our existence as the people of the Marianas. I know how influential culture is. My father is a Polynesian native of Samoa, and my mother is a Micronesian and native Chamorro from Saipan. For us, culture is not just a facet of life, it is life itself, the essence that binds us to our land, our heritage, and with each other. Through DCCA, we weave the threads of our identity into a tapestry of resilience and pride. And at its helm, we require not just a leader, not just a champion, but a steward, someone who understands the intricacies of our diverse communities, who listens with patience and empathy, and who works tirelessly to amplify our voices on a global stage. In Uncle Frank, we find such a steward, a man of humility, integrity, and unwavering dedication. In his willingness to serve our people, he carries with him the hopes and aspirations of every son and daughter of the Marianas and every person who calls this place their home. Therefore, I ask this humble body of leaders and the community to show commitment and passion to my generation and future generations to come by confirming Uncle Frank Rabalaman's appointment as the Secretary of DCCA. Sizuzmasi Olomoy and Fafatay.
Thank you, Ms. Toomata. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Chair and esteemed members of this committee. On behalf of the DCCA Division of Youth Services, it is a privilege and honor to share our full support for the Governor's nomination of Mr. Francisco M. Boliman as the DCCA Secretary. As one of the largest departments under the executive branch, DCCA oversees a vast array of programs and service delivery, and in serving numerous divisions in addition to the Office of the Secretary, and in counting over 150 in DCCA employees, and most especially extending these programs out to the islands of Saipan, Tinian, and Rota, the position of the DCCA Secretary requires one that upholds strong leadership qualities, one that is able to address ongoing community challenges, and one that possesses the quality to be responsive to this community needs. As DCCA provides services that directly affect the livelihood of our Sinamay children and families, it is important that whoever will be charged with these responsibilities come in with the background, knowledge, and skills necessary to support these vital programs, which serves our Sinamay population ranging from our newborns to our manamkos. I have not known Mr. Abalaman for long, but I am aware of the extensive background he brings in serving our Sinamay community, as a lot of the testimonies allude to earlier. To the opportunity of working with him as the acting DCCA secretary mid to late last year, and again upon his return early this year, it is evident that he is a leader with standards and principles while also taking care of the employees and ensuring program integrity. Wait, because it's making me nervous. And he better not change his mind, because if he does, I'm coming back to the Hill. This nomination comes at a time when it is very crucial to have the stability the department needs as we work to fulfill the facilities and program opportunities that are before us. His acceptance to this nomination and the sacrifice that he is to make, which comes along with the decision, is a true testament of his willingness to help guide and move the department in the right direction. As where DCCA's program and service delivery stands, how it has transformed and progressed these past several years, how more opportunities for children and families are evident and readily accessible, we truly believe that Mr. Rabaliman's leadership skills, passion for contributing to a thriving community, and humble personality can further pave the way for expanded community and cultural opportunities for our Sinamay children and families. With this, we humbly ask or seek your utmost favorable support for Mr. Rabalaman's nomination for the DCCA Secretary. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Sablon. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Babalta and esteemed members of the EAGI Committee. My name is Walter Manglonia, the Director for the Office on Aging, and I'm also the Acting Director for the Chamorro and Carolinian Language Policy Commission and the head of the Commonwealth Respite Service Program here in the CNMI. I wrote a lot on this paper, but I kind of want to just talk to you guys just from my heart. So I just want to share some of my experience working with Mr. Rabaliman. And as you know, if you have a good boss that you can work with, somebody who's very supportive and intelligent and very kind and patient, that's what I get out of Mr. Rabaliman. So it was an honor and a pleasure to be able to work with him. It's very easy for us to be able to overcome some of the challenges that is presented in our programs. And he's always a very patient person when it comes to being able to address some of the daily challenges that we get at the program. So as you guys all know, we deal with some of the most delicate demographics, in the monomco. And there's always going to be challenges that's going to present itself. So just based on what the federal mandate calls for and things that we need to be able to game plan and address, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to have a very good boss that myself, my team can work with, not just here in Saipan, but also in Tinian and Rhoda. And Mr. Rabaliman is definitely the person that I see that I could easily work with. He's very kind and patient, like I mentioned before. And with that, I give him my full support wholeheartedly. And I wish that you guys can give him that consideration. And everybody else already mentioned all the good qualities of this man, but I could personally say firsthand that that is 100% true. And with that, boss, good luck. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Manglonia. The floor is still open for public comments.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman and members. My name is Emmanuel Mikkel. I work at the aging office. I want to tell you about someone really special. His name is Frank Rapoliman, and he likes a super strong coconut crab. You know how coconut crab used to their big claws to climb trees and get what they want. When Rapalman is just like that. He's really good at getting things that can help people out. You know, sometimes our life can be like a big ocean with waves crashing all around us. But Frank is like that, sturdy pudding, keeping us safe and guiding us through those rough waters. He's just like that, to lead, to lend us a good and make sure everything is okay. There is a saying that goes on. When the going on, there is true. The rough Frank is like that. And he is definitely like tough. He never give up even when things getting hard. So let us all support Frank Rapalman for TCCA secretary. With his in charge, he will be like a stream of coconut crab and unstoppable. Together we can do anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko or Migo? Migo. The floor is still open for public comments.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of this committee. I'm here on behalf in support of Mr. Frank Robaliman. Mr. Robaliman and myself practically grew up in the same household, and I cognizant of the fact that DCCA more or less has a significant role in addressing the ills within our community. It's an overwhelming task. I know Frank, he possesses a positive acumen, unquestionable integrity, and I know he can handle the job given his credentials and background. With that, Madam Chair, before I forget again, for you to remind me, I am Felix Nogues. It's been a while since we see each other, and I'm here on behalf of Carolinian Affairs and on behalf of the Carolinian community. In looking at the chamber right now, I think it's a good example of bringing our people, our indigenous people that are here in support of his nominee. Therefore, I ask this committee to humbly support his nomination for the Secretary of DCCA. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kiliso.
Really so, Mr. Nogues, and thank you for remembering to state your name for the
I
record.
knew you were going to remind me.
The floor is still open for public comments.
Might start like this. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit, God of love. Love. Bishop Victory 724. My name is Juan Augustine from Efforts Aging. And I fully support and humbly request that we may give our support to Mr. Rabaliman here to be the DCA boss. With that all said, thank you so much. That's it. And then I will close again with this. Then the Father, Son, and Spirit, God of love. Love. Bishop Victory 724. Thank you, bye.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The floor is still open for public comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, esteemed members. I'm John Tagbell. I am related to Frank. On behalf of my family, uh, we extend a big thank you for entertaining Frank. As the previous speakers have repeated, Frank have all the qualities. But more importantly, I'm here to affirm that from the family perspective. And we are really proud of Frank for standing up and taking on more civil service job. So on behalf of our family, we give you Frank Rebolaman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tagalba. The floor is still open.
Afternoons and buenas, Madam Chair, Babauta, Senator Karina Magofnia, Senator Paul, and any members and staff. Gohu Siliana Manglonia Suman Schneider, Gaigizugini, Ginin i Matua Council for Native Chamorro Advancement. Importantíssima na oficina. Sa giza mas dongkulu, uno mas dongkulu na oficina i gobernamento. Lo edzi na gaigizu utoma padiset ko pa before para sa binanga sa session lo sista kulanat man gini lo no zoki mas malagozo na befaisin taigizu gini ti pa bi kontra si Frank or pa bi suporta sa eno i desisyon niya gobyerno giza is on your constitutional power then liya bula mo suporta lo gwasa bula ko concern sa go na si Mr. Rebolaman tinebu amigi komunikasyon kesti siya i tinataka i fengkas dan i irensyan i tototono i tomorrow ginigi mapos no sa bisangan esti sa izonya history si Mr. Rebolaman para fatasangan i offer no izonya credential sa qualifico i tauto zan siguro zo na sinya no necesita zo na direksyon i oficina i DCCA pago na tempo lo guaha dong kulo ko concern sa ni Guiza administrasyon no gi BCEQ i Bureau of Environmental no Quality edzi papa i malok coastal disaster gi sengsungan agwan ezi zagarapan ni gagi i casino no bula no problema gi environmental issues parafa bipolo bitaka izo pago lo importante na utungan na dongkulo ke izo na no departamento za dongkulo na kadgo lo ginigiman maampusungo por este local regulatory agency versus federal regulatory requirements, environmental requirements. So, eno na klase leleku na importante na sti no na oportunidad para mo na importante na DCCA umatan sa bula loki federal no programs and services provide sti na no departamento DCCA. Uno ni gagigi na importante na gagizo gini put HPO, Historic Preservation Office. Public Law 3-39, then Public Law 10-17, Public Law 3-39, no sentima tatsa sti za inigi kakat nenyesti. Za ginagago galami 3-39, idzi maalo Class 1, Class 1 mafatinas para Samoro. Za edzi ginagawa intensyon niya na mafatinas Class 1. Importante no maatan sti Public Law 3-39 amzo ni membro gini zan legislatura za in aliglesti so dongkulu problema niya. 10-17 ma-create 10-17 po na $10,000 per infraction an offer masasedi gi 3-39 rules and regulation ni HPO. Importante no na si administrator no si aningkin fitma si secretary no Rebolaman no umaatan esti za no go na volunteer an malagbi fanazuda ni offer tamano mas na molik para mo na. no sa tisina tafan no siga no tafan apunta sa no tenigi na kay gini malaguzo tafan azuda za tana maulik mo na para tori tauto sa ti samorwa wa gini todo klasin tauto wa gini yocho no loki gagi papa departamentonya i Arts Council no utungan na Adventista Makolo matuzug atog Indigenous Affairs za i Arts Council ang kulo problemanya Indigenous Affairs pa na ora ang kulo problemanya sa no kalanti matetendi za gagi pa ma house ki temporario EDCAC i Arts Council no temporario za i Arts Council isanalum tori tempo mangagi tauto Indigenous Affairs managi lo i Arts Council importante na mana i gumanya ti gumanya yalam Indigenous Affairs no bula guma bula gini housing umanai zo majuda zo manai lugar niya i Arts Council sa Arts Council dong kulo na opisina za representa todo artists pues debi na najuda za na i opisina niya za i Indigenous Affairs utogit so niya sa dong kulo mandon niya zo na opisina para ito tutano no enige no ufafesin si Mr. Robalaman ko sinya umaatan ito yotu no dan kasibenti no mina ultimo i gagi papa ofisinanya i Chamorro Language Commission i Chamorro Language Commission no gitempo sa disin mafatina sisti na oktu no bulan no tinalaika pago Chamorro ang Carolinian Language Commission tisinya bukwentus mas puri ocho banda sa gagi zung ini pamatua council lo kumo gohu toto gahan no lahaleu ginin tanapak ito to tanapak manginin North Chuk sa sinanahu biya no nanatataw biyu no nanatataw biyu si Maria no Ulupumar no ginin namunuito za hami timan refalo asyabi Inigi under DCCA debi no alegla inno zo manadinansi sa ichamo i Carolinian English Dictionary asasanga na ino nagalumedyo na dictionary ini ma-print in 1991 in University of Hawaii Press asasanga na it's not representative of all the languages and the people that are here in the Northern Marianas prior to 1950 who are the people of the Caroline Islands respectively. Washa, Guayab, Wachuk, Wasatawa, Walamatrik, Wawolia. Loti eno nagagizo ini poluza. It's another time. So it's a very convoluted issue. So we are led to believe something that's not true, and I don't want people to be shoving down in my throat to tell me to say something that it's not. So on behalf of Matua Council, kumugohu kumelulu i Chamorro, kaigizo gini para bi abansa mo na inilala ito tutano para ifaman mamayla sa na relasyon sa bugaha siya kanang no barangka tana dinansi za malagozo na baby fatsoto. The HPO, wahad zonya Monday, gini Secretarial Order, Department of Interior, it's Maluk State Historic Preservation Officer, debi igobetno, wapunta instituto, az mapunta. Sa debi mapunta sa nisista wa communication, Director, Historic Preservation, Pago, acting, si Antilatis, si John Palacios, no, necesita azudo HPO, Madam Chair, no, HPO, necesita dong kululun azudo. Anasita staff archaeologist by law, Anasita staff anthropologist by law, Anasita staff archivist by law. This the third legislature. The thousand ni mafulfills the. So kumikilik ko na mampus man neglect sin oficina, it's na ifengkas dani iiren siya rito totono it's a moro disarray. Pues no, lastly, no nisita mazuda post secretary, como makonfirma, I'm sure na siyempre makonfirma, pero ma-ajuda so fatsoto sa ni Cinema Museum, sa necesita Cinema Museum Curation Facility. Sa curation facility by law, Cinema Museum gives a repository no, of all artifacts in the cinema. Sa iti kumaprendi for repository, kumikiling niya todo collection, yaman masoda, edzigato. Lo todo sa niya current facility, Cinema Museum todo sa niya curation facility, therefore todo sa niya qualified curator or an executive director at this time. So that's for the administration to hear this. Animwano si Danny Nakino, disipagotaza. So, gagizo gini, para be sharing no za malagozo na you know si Mr. Robalaman magay isa masangan muling na tauto uli igi college uli loki gi pamalo siya lo ujido no tungo na muling na tauto sa personally ni sa masagwa zan one of the beauties ki Talangkanoa District 1 si Marcy za si Marcy amko kinigwalo utungo si Marcy familanya. Za go to sarangka pero amin at solan naman malulufan 2 blocks given Americano, we're only 2 blocks away. Za ugo respeta si Marcy. Za no disipagwa sa gwagwanya, I mean no offense to, za nigi na dangkulo na respeto. Lo no importante na ta no tafan manano mo na, za tanadinan si store para fa magunta. So anyways, congratulations. So tungan na confirm.
Sis Mosse, Senora Hofschneider. The floor is still open for public comments.
Kan di sini tak penyelidikan tu lalu. Dispensa les esta no. Mano usun esta mali sa tare de kali gitu. Good afternoon, Ms. Chairwoman. Actually, this is historical for me because this is the first time I ever appear in front of as a chairwoman of this executive appointment. Good afternoon and holidays and from Gagil Yap Mogotin. Yeah. I'm going to speak in English because, Liana already spoke in Chamorro. Senator Paul Manglonia and Senator Donna Manglonia, Senator Magofnia, and all the legal counsel here. I apologize. I already changed my clothes, but I've been here almost every day. And, this is important that I come here to testify. I know I testified last night for the Birunat bill and the Afuk bill and so forth. And those are very important. And it's part of our culture. And I've never really known Mr. Rubaliman. I've always checked his hand, when he was chairman of the Board of Region, when he was the BCQ administrator, and then when he was working for the Lieutenant Governor, Arnold Palacios, now he's the governor. And he's always respectful and to me. And that's one thing, the quality that I know him from that professional level. And I'm not here to oppose him. I'm not here to support him. And I know his credentials have been, look at the families, his honorable, his families and his staff. A lot of the qualified division directors are here to support him. And that's honorable for Mr. Rabaliman. But I'm here because Mr. Rabaliman, your job is as a secretary of DCCA encompasses, earlier Liana mentioned about Historic Preservation Office and the Chamorro Language Commission. And of course, the youth, I used to do substitute teaching, and I'm very concerned about our youth, new generations, and we have to, with the high incidence of drugs around, we know that, and a lot of alcoholism early and so forth. And it's very important. I testified last night. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm still going through cancer. It's my fourth cancer in almost 18 years, and tobacco and so forth. It's very important that we prevent those as a youth. You're going to be taking care of the youth program, but I'm very concerned about the Historic Preservation Office. Everybody knows that I stand up as a volunteer for the Matua Council, and I don't want to say this, but publicly I've been accused as a racist. And I just met Mr. Nogis back there and I shook his hand, but that's his opinion and I respect that. Mrs. Chairwoman and members of this body and everybody listening, the family and supporters and the public, if I'm racist, I will not be here. And that's a different time that I'm going to address that. I am here because I'm a Chamorro. I'm here because I'm an indigenous. I'm here because I'm a Tototano. And I don't everybody's welcome to our beautiful Mariana Islands. We have 500 years of colonialism, and we're still fighting for. I just thank you for telling the Washington D.C. I spent many years in Washington D.C. telling them that when you're going to call us in our time, because the time differences, and that's a sign of self-government, the covenant. We have to practice self-government, and it's very difficult because now we're dealing with the 902 again, and that's the issue of the covenant. And you have 10 divisions that are very important. We receive a lot of federal programs and stuff like that, and thank God that we do have that. It's very important for the Manamku, for the Manhobin, for the language and so forth. And I'm already Manamku. I haven't got my card yet, but pretty soon I'm going to go there and register. But Mr. Reboliman, it's very important that you look at the Historic Preservation Office, and we've been monitoring the $15 million MPLT loan, and it's a political decision by Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor, and we respect that. That's his constitutional duty to a point. But a lot of infrastructures are going to be permitted, and I believe the Historic Preservation have to sign off for that. And we need stability there at the Historic Preservation Office, because I've witnessed this. There is no archaeologist right now. Every time I drove down, I take pictures. There's no archaeologist watching. I've went there a couple times to Historic Preservation, left my number to please. Is there anyone monitoring this today? And that area is very important, because that area that the Carolinas originally from Satwa, Walia, and Lamatrig, they call it Walia. But the Chamorros, we call it San Jose or Catanhuda. And we have to be respected for that, Mr. Reboliman. I'm here to improve our community, not to promote negativism or, because we're not here to promote negativism. We're here to promote positive stuff. But when we stand up for indigenous rights or indigenous issues, they label us as racist, and that's the wrong way to label us. And we'll deal with that later on. That's another question right now. But truly, you have a very extensive experience in running this. You've been a board of regents, like I said, and so forth. And I truly, I know your experience you would run this well, and I know that you're going to be confirmed overwhelmingly. But please keep in mind those issues and the Chamorro language. We want to know what your program is, how you're going to improve more, because we're losing our language. It's a 3,500-year-old language. And I want to read it again, the curation. This, what you call that? Every time these archaeologists, the way we wrote they get permitted, they just dig up. And I remember it personally down there next to Punta Nutsut, right across the Stipend Sibudor. There was an archaeologist that we saw the digging. We saw our ancestors down there. And they tell us to go away. So for me to see our ancestors down there buried for the first time, it kind of threw me off, It's very emotional for me. And, when somebody passed away, we go and pray for 18 days, And it's the same thing, burial grounds everywhere we have to respect, And I ask you to please look into that. We must follow federal law, and we must follow Sinamay law. And please ban those archaeologists that did the desecration down at Anawan, and they're still getting permits from our government. Now they're called applied archaeologists, Dr. Dega. Now I heard they're in Tinian. They told me that somebody recently met with you regarding their in Tinian hired by the Navy, and they're surveying. So it's very a critical issue that your office. I know there's 9. I didn't know you have 10, and that's a lot of office, Mr. Urbani. But I know you can, your experience. I know I'm confident. So please, if I know personally, if I leave a message, I know you're busy. We're all busy. but or email. I would love if you can make time for me to come in a professional manner. We can talk about a lot of things. that
Mr.
we can proceed.
Hofschneider?
So I really thank you very much.
Yeah, I will give you 2 more minutes.
Oh no, it's only 1 minute. I only need 1
And
minute.
I ask you to please stick to the agenda.
Yeah, yeah. But the historic preservation is very important.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
And the agenda is him, Miss Chairwoman. With due respect, I'm here. I'm here for him. And you're, you know, and I'm not going to talk about other programs, but the issues of historic preservation has been neglected, and the permitting process by BECQ is very important. And I asked Mr. Bolliman if he can please take care of the historic preservation professionally. And I'm not here to oppose him or support him, but I'm confident that without my opinion, you'll be confirmed. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to hold his hand and good luck, and we'll work together. Yeah.
Thank you,
And thank you,
Mr.
Chairwoman.
Hofschneider.
Yeah.
The floor is still open for public comment.
And lastly, I'm on the agenda. Thank you.
The floor is still open.
Oh, okay. Happy days, happy days. First, my name is Sylvan Igisomar. I'm your Secretary of the Department of Lands and Natural Resources. First, I want to thank Mr. Frank here for accepting to step up and take this role. Uh, Good afternoon, Tiro, Faisro, Hafaday, Madam Chair, and members of this honorable body. I've known Frank for all my life, starting out first as a mentor, watching what he's doing. He was a head of. He's been in all kinds of um seats, boards, um, head of Carolinian Affairs Office, PSS, and so personally and professionally, I've known him all my life. In the professional realm, we worked very closely together as directors of Fish and Wildlife when I was Fish and Wildlife, and he was at DQ, and we did some pretty amazing stuff out there in a short period of time, to include beginning that one-star permit that streamlined permitting issues with environmental stuff. Um, we stood together against so many other stuff like the monument. We were very active in it. And I was always and continue to be impressed with his temperament and how he approaches things from very outside the box thinking. And so I often take a bite out of his way of doing stuff because it's very effective. So congratulations to you, to the CNMI, for having this guy step in. I hope you would quickly approve his nomination and confirm him. Uh, we're lucky to have this guy, and instead of chilling out and on the beach and enjoying retirement, he's still on the ground, throwing in his wisdom and things like that. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
This is a small seat, Senor Igisomar. The floor is still open.
Good afternoon. My name is Floyd Mosca. I'm the Special Advisor for DLNR, as well as a contractor for other agencies within the CNMI. I gotta say that it says a lot when a person takes a cabinet seat, And one of the biggest things that our cabinet members face nowadays is, of course, certain things with regard to salary, austerities, managing a department, managing the staff, the needs of the community, and running several divisions within the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. I myself am a former employee of DCCA, as well as other. I would like to say that I've actually been an employee for all three branches of the government, even the legislature as well. And when I first met Frank, Frank and I have a long history from the Northern Marianas College. Worked together over there. He was a board member, and I was an employee there for the Community Development Institute. And I will remember Frank talk about what's needed. And he was the kind of individual that came up and he goes, "Hey, can I talk to you for a little bit? I need to, see what's going on." And Frank was always there to listen to the students and to the faculty and the staff of the Northern Mountains College. Furthermore, Frank and I actually worked as well hand in hand when I was over within the Division of Fish and Wildlife, and he was the DEQ director, I believe, right? And then now, most currently, um, and we are very fortunate, and I want to make this clear, we are very fortunate that Frank is one of the survivors with regard to the Marianas Trench Monument Advisory Council. We have once more reinstituted that advisory council for the Marianas Trench. And same thing again, Frank's character says a lot. And the some of the verbiage that we and Frank always talk about was that we will work for the CNMI. We will not work for the other side. We are going to work for the people, and we're not just going to be sit down and just follow whatever they tell us what to do. You update the bylaws, for example, Mr. Frank would say, and I would say, yeah, we're not going to go any further than that until that gets resolved. So again, I do support Mr. Frank Rebalaman 110%. You will not find a better gentleman to take the job and then some. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mosca. The floor is still open for public comments.
Hi, boss. Good afternoon. My name is Ramona Camacho. I do work for the DCCA Secretary's Office. I am Mr. Frank Rebalaman's secretary. Um, can you imagine what I go through throughout the day? um, First and foremost, boss, I think you have a call. Working under different secretaries in DCCA. I've been with DCCA for over 19 years in different units, different division. Um, I've never tried actually having a secretary like Mr. Frank. The reason why I say that is because uh, every day when he walks in that door, the first thing he would do is look at me and say, "Do I have anything? Do I have to meet with anybody? What's my calendar looking like today?" And usually with secretaries that I've worked for before, will just walk into the building, walk past by, and not ask that question. So when I do let Mr. Rebalaman know phone calls that came in for requests for appointments or meetings, he will never deny them. And that is one good quality of a leader. He will meet with anybody, whether you're black, white, Carolinian, Chamorro, Chinese, it doesn't matter. That the thing with Mr. Rebalaman is you have a problem, you're presenting a problem, then come and let's come up with a solution together. And that's the kind of leadership that this department actually really needs. We have 9 divisions. I think Miss Margaret wanted to put sports back in. We used to have sports and rec, so I don't blame her. But we do have 9 divisions, and I see a lot come across every day from each divisions. Many of the times it's about challenges with communicating with grantors, coming up with solutions on how to better the programs for his divisions. And I'm proud to say that Mr. Rebolivan actually brought back a very good relation and communication with HPO grantors, which is the National Park Services. Um, he also saved a $6 million project within a 2 week span. And we were so fortunate that the National Park Services grantor decided to come back to the table with us in the CNMI, DCCA, HPO, and say, okay, let me see now how much are you going to progress with this amount of money that's been laying down there for years that we are about to take back. So Mr. Reboliman gave us that 2 weeks. He just gathered a whole team in 2 weeks and did what we had to do to present back to National Park Services to save that 6 million project. So now he walks into the office every other Thursday looking at me like, okay, set me up. Are we ready? Is NPS online? And that's a strong leader. That is the kind of leader that we really need in this department. He has been in good communication with grantors from also the Division of Youth Services, NAP, Arts Council is picking up, and there's been a lot of improvement. So I myself, I've been thrown into this team for the disaster project for HPO, and believe it or not, every time we're on that conference call, we take on the show. It's not the grantor asking us question. It's us now asking the grantor's question. All of this, all because of Mr. Verbaliman's work style. And yes, it doesn't matter who calls. He will tell me, make that appointment, tell them to come in. Let's sit down. And guess what? Google became my best friend. The last time I ever did a research was back in college years. Here's Mr. Rebalaman telling me, Mona, I want you to research what's the provision for this. Bring it on. So when I come with the result of the research, he already knows. So I'm like, oh, this boss is really good because it's actually putting me on my feet, putting everybody on their feet. Research and research and research. Make sure you know the facts, know what your division is all about, what is the objective and the mission of the department. And for this, I almost didn't make it here because he wanted to make sure someone's at the office, that we didn't close the office. So we had to leave one staff behind. But that just shows that he opens up the door to the public any given time, Monday to Friday only. Okay. With that said, he is a humble man, and I believe that this department will steer to progress for the betterment of the cinema. I therefore recommend for Mr. Rebalaman to be confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Camacho. The floor is still open for public comments. If there are none, I would like to take a short 10-minute recess before we continue. There's something I need to take care of urgently in the office right now. Thank you. This meeting is hereby in recess until 3:24 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I apologize for that short intermission. Prior to the recess, we were still on public comments, and the floor is still open for public comments. If there are no further individuals who wish to make public comments, we will now close that portion of the agenda and move forward. Let the record reflect that the committee received letters of support from Mr. Reboloman from the following individuals: Dr. Kurt C. Barnes, former Peace Corps volunteer and former teacher of Marianas High School; Miss Rosalia C. Tergezo, an employee of the Child Care and Development Fund, a division under DCCA; Miss Maribel Loste from DCCA; Miss Vivian T. Sablan, administrator of the Division of Youth Services; Miss Catherine B. Fuller, former Assistant Attorney General; Mr. Christopher R. Sablan in his personal capacity; and Mr. Valentino N. Tysican, Mayor of the Municipality of the Northern Islands. The committee also did not receive any letters in opposition of Mr. Reboloman's nomination at this time. I now ask the nominee to please rise and raise your right hand, and our legislative assistant, Mr. Devin Macaranas, will administer the oath.
Francisco M. Reboloman, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reboloman. You may be seated. This afternoon, we have called Mr. Francisco M. Reboloman, nominated by Governor Palacios on January 5th, 2024, to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. And I want to welcome and thank Mr. Reboloman for his willingness to serve, if confirmed, as the Secretary of DCCA. The Department of Community and Cultural Affairs, or DCCA, was established by Public Law 1-8 in 1978. It is one of the largest departments in our government, charged to oversee the operation and administrative functions in the areas of human and social services, historic and landmark conservation and preservation, and activities to preserve the Chamorro and Carolinian heritage and traditions. They also have satellite offices in Tinian and Rhoda. And we are here this afternoon because these nominations require the advice and consent of the Senate. This hearing is part of our confirmation process as well as democratic process, which involves the legislature exercising its authority under the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth to vet his credentials beyond his education and professional standing in order to determine or to make recommendations to the full Senate to either confirm or reject his nomination. Mr. Reboloman, I will now turn the floor to you. Should you wish to make opening remarks for the committee, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hafadays and Tiro, to you and members of this esteemed body. Again, my name is Francisco Maram Reboloman, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present my personal testimony in this public hearing as a nominee to the Secretary of the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. Let me start by extending my humble appreciation to Governor Arnold I. Palacios and Lieutenant Governor David M. Apatang for their trust and confidence in me to serve as the Secretary of DCCA in their administration. I'd also like to thank all the families and friends and supporters for the overwhelming support that they've shown today at this public hearing. I was not overly enthusiastic when I first was asked to assume the acting secretary position, truth be told, primarily because I thought I was done serving in an administrative capacity and especially in a sizable agency. It certainly never crossed my mind that I would be asked to temporarily oversee a big department. I have served in over 5 different administrations in various capacities, and never have I encountered an instance where there was real shortage of potential cabinet member candidates. Why this is so, I can only speculate, but be that as it may, I offered my services to assist in this capacity after I was asked to do so. I have been a public servant for the past 30 years and have served locally in many capacities, including as a PSS high school guidance counselor. I dabbled in the cultural and constitutional advocacy area as director of the Carolina Affairs Office. Went into workforce development as coordinator of the Pacific Vocational Education Initiative program, while a program manager for counselors and vocational education for PSS Central Office. I ventured into the environmental field for over a decade, after which I decided to pivot away from government and go into private sector, still in workforce development. And now I am back in government as a public service servant again. I guess it runs in the blood, as both my parents were public servants and educators through and through. As a former guidance counselor, lifetime educator, and an administrator, I like to believe that I bring to this nomination a rounded package of experience that I feel will be an added benefit to effectively manage the biggest department and the mother of all affairs. No, I do not profess that I know the full details of what the men and women do under this department, but my curiosity and admiration of the professionalism that they demonstrate day in and day out is unquestionable. Like the weight placed on our DYS counselors as they meticulously conduct their forensic investigations, knowing full well that the victim's livelihood rests in their hands, or the commission of compassion and tactfulness that our NAP or LIHEAP eligibility workers display when confronting frustrated mothers in duress, or the patience required to work daily with our elders at the aging or toddlers at our child care centers. This much I know: an impeccable resume or well rounded experience will only get you halfway. Passion, commitment, and love of the work will take you the rest of the way. In that sense, my work is cut out for me. If confirmed, the men and women that carry out DCCA mandates are well aware that their work is critical, that collectively they hold the last hope of our helpless. They are the last line of defense from despair. They are an intervention and advocacy support group for the unfortunate members of our community in many critical areas. They provide childcare from 6 weeks onward, support traumatized and at risk youth, care for elderly, battered spouses, abused kids. They provide subsidized food and electricity for needy families, and now to be instituted, support for all students, homebound and homeschooled included. They stand firm protecting and promoting local languages, culture, and artistic values. And they don't stop there. Decades after you are 6 feet under, they provide you protection if they deem you historically significant. DCCA is front and center from the time you are 6 weeks old until you are decades 6 feet under. Now that I have shared with you a glimpse of what DCCA does, allow me to remind you what its latest local budget was in 2024. DCCA is often labeled as the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest department in the executive branch by the sheer number of its employees. Yet it receives the second lowest budget amongst the departments. True, we manage millions of dollars in federal funds, but as you well know, many of these funds are restrictive. I can ramble on about available resources, but I will reserve much of this discussion for the budget round. But let me share that there continues to be exciting activities that will require some investments from the local end. To name a few, slated for this year is the Flame Tree Festival and the Festpack that would need your fiscal attention. That's with an F. Also, I mentioned earlier about the summer EBT benefits for students. This program is going to be instituted as an annual program and it requires a 50% match to administer. It provides about $177 each student, including private and homeschooled. Given it is the first year, the administrative cost, which is around $265,000, may be waived for the territories. And I must say that just to get the waive request approved, it's taking quite a bit of time. And so it's safe to say that it's not a done deal that this waiver is going to be approved. As far as I know, matching for the states are not waived. In essence, to avail of this benefit for this benefit moving forward, we will need to contend with this matching requirement. These are just a glimpse of the fiscal challenges that were not enumerated in previous budget submissions, but will likely be in this upcoming. Let me close by saying that I have had the opportunity and privilege to work with many dedicated and committed people in the government. I said this before I left the PSS Central Office, and again in my spiel when I left BECQ in the few months that I have worked. In the few months that I have worked with staff at DCCA, I have seen and can genuinely say that the men and women at DCCA are very passionate about the work that they do. Some are constantly on call. Others defer their admin days off because it falls on the day of issuance of benefits. They are very committed and they need the support and recognition they deserve. Thank you. Really so.
Senor Rebalman. Mr. Rebalman, you are no stranger to this committee. We've already gone through one of these with you when you were confirmed last September for the CEDA board. So I thank you again for coming before this committee, and I thank you for your service, 30 years in various capacities. The government and the CNMI needs dedicated people like you. My first question to you is, since your appointment in January, can you please share with us some of the lasting improvements you've made for DCCA?
Thank you. I must confess that in the few months that I've been on DCCA, I've spent most of my time on divisions that really needed my attention, and those are namely the NAP and NAP and HPO. So as you've probably heard, the earlier testimony about the $6 million disaster grant, that was we were actually very fortunate to get the support of NPS on that matter. But yes, we had to scramble the last few minutes or last few days actually to try and get them to approve the extension of that $6 million grant. Once we got that extended, we had to sort of pedal back because the package that was presented uh, with all this scope of work, and this is the renovation of all these buildings, um, really needed a second eye from an engineering point of view. Unfortunately, the initial scope of work was drafted up without the engineers. It was from the staff that actually did the scope of work. Anyways, make the story short, that was one of the one of the things that I thought, and I must say that it wasn't all because of me. It was a lot of teamwork that went into it, to include even the previous, even my predecessor did some of the, quite a bit of the rather heavy lifting on that. So yes, we were successful in getting the extension of that $6 million grant, and we're now moving forward with trying to do all the renovation of those buildings. The first phase, just so FYI, first phase of that project includes 18 buildings, all of them in Capitol Hill, and they're going to be renovated. There are, of course, some restrictions to the grant on what could be allowed to be replaced or repaired. But nonetheless, it's going to be a much better building after all is said and done. That was one. The other one that it's still an ongoing, uh, I wouldn't say a crisis, but this had to do with NAP. Back in October, when I was first, I started my first acting ship. Um, we had to come up with an approved budget that was embedded in the MOU with FNS. Um, and when we submitted our proposed budget back in October 1st, it normally takes 3 months before Washington D.C. approves the grant, and so, or the MOU. And so what happens is we are on continuing resolution uh, all the way into the first quarter of this fiscal year. Um, so the benefits remain the same, even though the funding has somewhat dipped because last year we had ARPA to sort of cover some of those expenses. Unfortunately, we're out of ARPA, and so we went on continuing resolution, knowing full well that at some point we're not going to make it to the end of the fiscal year. So we worked it out with the with the FNS folks, our federal counterparts. If you recall, we did go out in the media alerting the people that by January 1st, the benefits may dip to the tune of some 20%, something to that effect. Um, but we continued working it out with the grantors, and fortunately, the grantors came back and said, "Okay, we may need to extend that. Maybe we won't start that dip on January 1st. Maybe we can move it up to February 1st." Well, January 1st came, nothing happened. February 1st came, nothing happened. I'm not saying that we're out of the woods. I'm just saying that, the benefits continue to be status quo at same level for the community. While all this is, while this is, while we're facing this, we continue to work with FNS to try and see if we can get additional funding for this. I have reached out to our delegate with regards to this, informing him about this potential dip in the benefits. And the latest I heard, and again, this is no official word in any way, shape, or form, but the latest news about whether this dip is going to happen this fiscal year is encouraging. Let me just put it that way. It is encouraging news, and I'm going to stop at that because I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret later on. But FYI, that's the in fact that's verbatim. That's the word that I was told that it's encouraging that we may be able to find additional funding so that this dip is not going to happen. I hope I answered your question, Madam Chair.
Sure. You've given us some of your challenges as well as some of your accomplishments. I'm familiar with the $6 million grant from NPS. It's to rehabilitate historical buildings. Now that you've made your budget pitch earlier in your remarks, I'd like to make a legislature's pitch. Is the legislature, have you, obviously you've identified buildings, right, for rehabilitation that will be covered under that grant. And I hope that you consider the legislature, this is an historical building. It was, for those who are not aware, I believe it was the CIA's area of operations. They were conducting, their missions out of this building. And we've been trying to find ways to rehabilitate this so that we can preserve its history for our people. But there's hardly any grants, and I haven't come across any. There are no grants that would provide for a legislature, a political office, or a partisan office like the legislature. I've been looking, trying to apply for grants, mainly to preserve the building. But I hope you consider the legislature building as part of that grant. How close are we to getting on the SNAP program, the federal SNAP program, so that our people can avail of EBT cards? And I'm sure the NPS would be happy because it would mitigate fraud and the like.
Thank you for that question. It requires to get on the electronic EBT card. It requires 3 contractors, and all these contractors are off island, and they've been they've been in business. They're in the industry for good, and one of them is actually one that does. The primary contractor, FIS, is the one that does all these huge states, i.e., California, Texas, and whatnot. We were fortunate that they actually waited for us, and then waited for us and actually encouraged us to make sure that we meet the deadline to get their contract executed, which we did. And the reason why I say we were fortunate is because they're used to hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts for this type of work, whereas with us it's only about a drop in the bucket, 2 million at the most. So they are fully I mean, as far as their contract, they're done. The second one, they're waiting for their NTP, notice to proceed, and the third one is with the Attorney General. So, but while these things are moving forward, we are engaging with them, through video conferencing, and continuing the planning, because that's going to require quite a bit. I must say though that although we really would like to see this implemented sometimes this year, the schedule that FIS has sort of given us is pushed back till next year. And again, partly because we couldn't get all the 3 all the other contractors on board at the same time. And these are, people that will do the work on the infrastructure and the softwares and whatnot. So it was a lengthy. I mean, we were on discussions since before September, and only until just earlier today that I heard one of the second one is on NTP and the third one is with the Attorney General, and that is because not only did we have to go through a lot of reviewing and whatnot, but because on their end they have to run it through their legal vehicles, and of course that's going could be very time consuming, and that's why it's quite delayed. So to answer your question, how close we are as far as executing the contract, probably a month or so. But as far as full implementation of it, maybe pushed into the following year.
Do we have a specific month next year, maybe?
We honestly we haven't really
Okay.
engaged with FIS to pin down the date of when the target date is going to be for the implementation. But they've been, hinting that our schedule is tight for 2024. We may have to look into 2025, and we haven't quite responded in affirmation of that or not. But I think at some point we would have to. But we're still hoping that sometimes in 2024 we're going to see this happen. And the reason why is because, as you well know, with the card, it's going to reduce a lot of the manual work that goes through with these, manually counting all the vouchers and whatnot. So
Well, that's certainly great news to hear. I think it's important for you guys to do public awareness, maybe for recipients of the NAP. That this is coming up. I think because a lot of, as is typical, when you implement something new, there's going to be a lot of questions, and so that it would be one of my recommendations. You mentioned about the summer EBT and 50-50 match required, 50 in local funds and of course the federal funds. How much are you looking at in terms of the local match?
it's half of the 50% of the actual administrative cost, which we've submitted a budget of over 260,000. So about half of that, which would be about 130.
We'll certainly take that into consideration.
Thank you.
You're fortunate that the chairman of the fiscal affairs is sitting in this committee.
Loving it.
But what options are you looking at? Should there be no excess funds for the legislature to appropriate the matching? How else can we resolve this conundrum?
That's a good question, Madam Chair. The NAP program is 100% federally funded, and I can't. I know for a fact that you can't. It's very difficult to use federal funds to match federal funds, so it definitely has to come from local side.
Are there
Given-
any local funds being expended by the NAP office in particular? Anything locally spent?
Zero and none.
Supplies, furniture, upgrade of their system? None.
Zero and none that I'm aware of.
Because CHCC uses a local cost map to meet their Medicaid, to meet the local matching for the Medicaid, the CNMI central government's match. So I'm trying to think of ways that could perhaps be applied in a similar manner for other federal grants, not just in your department, but other departments as well. So that's why I'm asking that question. Is there anything that is expended for the NAP office locally using local funds?
Not that I'm aware of, Madam Chair.
Okay. So at this point, we're still, both your department and legislature will have to sit down and figure out how to come up with 130,000
And that's why I bring it up
on top of
now.
other pressing needs like the referral program, the
Yeah.
health network, you know. So we ask for your patience
Sure.
in that. I received a concerning call from one of the municipalities about Manamku lunch program, um, which your department, I think, administers here locally, right? How, what is it? How does it work for the other municipalities, like for Tinian? Central office here in Saipan receives these federal funding, and then I guess they find a contractor there, right, to provide
Right.
free lunches for our Manamku. So I received a concerning call from Tinian that the Manamku lunches were at one point stopped, and their reason was that the funds were depleted. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with funds being depleted.
Are you
Although
familiar?
I'm familiar that
Lunch
I was
program
alerted
was
about 2 days ago that there are times when the lunches don't get to the elderly, and the only thing that can come to mind is that perhaps the supplies didn't get there on time. But sorry, but I for the life of me, I didn't get a chance to actually confer with my director. But I intend to look into it.
Um, I would like to ask you to look into that. And I don't know if I didn't receive anything from Rhoda, but we don't know what's happening. I don't personally don't know what's happening in Rhoda. You were confirmed last September 21st to serve on as a board member for the CEDA, Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors. Do you see that your membership as a board member for CEDA and should you be confirmed as secretary for DCCA, how would you manage your time so that both agencies are well attended to? Do you see that as a conflict in your time, or?
No, I don't. I've been in a similar situation in the past when I was at BECQ and serving as a board of regent. Um, although I must say that at the time I was at the board board of regents, we were going through a very turbulent times. The accreditation was in jeopardy, and so I had to spend a lot of time at the college. Uh, but what I was so confident about was the competency of my managers, and that pretty much what saved me then. I have no doubt that I have to say, as competent with the division directors and managers that I have at DCCA. So I don't see that being a conflict. What could be a conflict, though, is is this notion that not notion, but I serve on the CETA board, but I also serve on CUC board, and the new, there's this new bill that came out that is talking about you know uh, authorizing CETA to forgive all the all the loans from CUC, and
So which hat would you wear?
really exactly, and that's the conflict that I may have.
I'm glad you brought that up. I hope you resolve that conflict
I've been
soon.
talking to
I wouldn't
myself.
want to be in your position then. But that's all the questions I have for right now, and I will recognize any other member if they have any questions for you. Recognize Senator Donald Minglonia.
Thank you, Chair, and good to see you again, as Acting Secretary. Just a couple of follow up with the Chair's questions. The HPO grant, you were granted an extension, and when is the new deadline to?
The end of the fiscal year.
So only up until September of this year.
Yeah. And again, at least in my conversation with our grantor, they've been very accommodating, to be honest with you, and that they really just wanted to see things move. They just want to see continuous progression towards the ending of the project. And so the message I got when they extended the grant was that we'll extend it for 1 year. We're going to see whether you're going to demonstrate progress in moving forward with this grant.
What's how much has been expended thus far, and what's the balance of the grant?
Less than 100,000, maybe even less than that. But because we're very close to groundbreaking for the 18 buildings that are on the that are slated for the first phase. So that's going to be around close to about 500,000, 18. So and then the next phase after that is we're looking at 6 additional projects. And let me just characterize how these buildings. The first 18 are pretty much very very superficial repairs. Touch ups here and there. There's not really a lot of extensive repairs. The next 6 are actually gutted out buildings that is going to require a lot more, maybe even pulling out the ground to put new plumbing and new ceiling and whatnot. So that's going to cost a lot more. I have no doubt that we'll be able to expend all this $6 million given the time. It's just that it takes a long time to get through these procurement things.
Okay.
Procurement process.
Have you looked into, seeing as how DCCA is one of the largest agencies that receive millions in grants, have you maximized the what's allowable by the grant to pay some of your employees at a certain percent?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you maximized it throughout all the divisions, and then that would free up local monies that you can use to address some of the other stuff like the local
I'm
match?
very very familiar with trying to maximize federal dollars. I did that in my spill at DCQ. I was part of the federal task force that former and late Governor Eloy Nina's tasked to try and get all the agencies to do just that, to put put the burden more on the federal resources and alleviate some of the the local funds. So I'm doing that.
Have you so the department was given close to 1.8 million just in personnel alone under the general fund. So how much are you able to realize from that by switching some of these employees?
So I haven't, to be honest with you, Senator, I haven't really gotten into actual transferring all of those, but through the austerity that we're in, I was able to keep some of the staff on 80 hours by leveraging the federal dollars or federal money for
Okay.
to cover those. But in due time, that's always been something that I look into to try and move locally funded staff to federal
funded. Okay, thank you for that. Just to clarify, earlier you mentioned that there's the administrative cost for the summer EBT. there's a requirement for the 50% match, but you said you submitted a request to get a waiver, or so
Yes.
the waiver will cover the local match.
Yes.
So you're just waiting to hear.
So again, that's another one that I've gotten information that there may be a possibility that it's going to be waived for this first year. This is the first time that we're actually we've done summer ABT, but it's called a different program. But this is the first time that this thing is going to be instituted, and so we've now we've heard that the likelihood of the territories getting waived is better than.
Is this the summer EBT for eligible students, or is it
No.
all students?
All students,
Okay.
even homeschooled,
Good.
private and public.
Okay, that's good to hear. What are the updates or any progresses with the Chamorro Carolinian Language Policy Commission? I know some recommendations were made with the prior secretary. Any advances in regards to what their goals are and what they're planning to do?
Thank you for that. Right now, I'm the funding that we got from for language commission is strictly for personnel, and even as we speak, it's short staffed because we have one staff who is on almost terminal leave or extended leave rather, uh, and I haven't really looked into filling the director position, and that's mainly because the work that they're doing right now, they're doing translation for other government agencies, mostly. Um, but at some point, obviously, I have to dive into it and see how the programs can be. But let me just update you as far as other discussions and activities that are happening with regards to language commission. I mean, language in general. So this morning, I met with the commissioner of education. There's a collective effort to try and revive the indigenous languages and starting with I mean, looking at the schools. We've been meeting back and here and there with regards to putting more bilingual teachers in the schools. Uh, and the discussion we had this morning with the commissioner was, at some point, we need to bring to bear the language policy commission to be in that same picture and try to promote the language.
Okay. Thank you for that update. Now, I just want to move over to the CCDF block grant. Where are we at with that in regards to how far can this program go with what's left with the funding? Is this something that it will be funded in future fiscal years?
That as far as as far as I know, yeah, the CCDF will continue to get funding at the level that it received this year. I'm not sure, and I doubt because, of course, again, we go back to ARPA. There was a lot of ARPA funds that was granted to CCDF, and my discussion with the director was that most of that funding was a pass through to the centers and many service providers. So to answer your question, yeah, I think there are several federal grants, and I believe two of them, if I'm not mistaken, and I can get back to you on that. Two of them are formula grants that keep the CCDF moving. But last year and I believe the previous year, there were added ARPA funds to the program, and that really I think it was a real blessing for particularly the service providers that end up receiving a lot of those money.
Well, I ask this because my concern is that when the ARPA came in and they've opened up the program to more providers, we saw a lot of people shift into
Mhm.
to becoming service providers, and now it's this much bigger program that I hope that there's enough funds to continue to allow them to stay providers and provide this service.
I would think, and again, this might be premature on my part, but I would think that in the event the source of funding gets depleted, likely that whatever is allotted to those service providers is going to be reduced as opposed to actually cutting off the number of service providers. Similarly, with what's going to happen if there is a dip in the NAP recipients, we're not going to cut off the number of recipients. We're just probably going to reduce the amount.
Okay. Thank you. And earlier you mentioned FESPAC. Have you identified how many delegations will be going up and what the cost is going to be for the CNMI? And how much of that cost maybe have been are already addressed, and how much more you need?
So I don't have the total number of the amount of money that it requires, but I do know that there's 100 delegates that are destined to get to Hawaii for this FESPAC. One, and two, there was a letter that was sent to this, I believe, the House that I helped crafted, and that was a request in the amount of about $160,000 to us to assist in the defraying the cost of this whole project or activity. And then in addition to that, there are other funds that Arts Council received from its granting agency that is going to this activity, and that's, I believe that was in the amount of like 70,000, if I'm not mistaken. And then on top of that, there's and these are these funds that are like from the grantor. That's on top of the 160,000 that was requested. So it's not in lieu of it, but it's rather on top of it. There's another source of funding that I was told was coming from the previous group that was a balance of what was used back in 2016. I don't know exactly how much that is, but we're trying to find as much,
Have you sought the help from MBA?
No, we haven't. We did write, like I said, we did write to the House. Now I don't know if we can definitely try asking MBA, but $162,000 is a sizable amount.
Yeah. Okay. That's all. Well, just one more clarification. Have you gotten the clearance from the AG to serve as both secretary and board member for CETA, or will you have to resign as a board member?
That's a good question. I haven't asked. I did ask my boss, and he said he doesn't think there's going to be an issue.
Council, that's not allowed, right?
Based on a prior appointment of I remember the Department of Commerce, when they appointed Mr. Ed Guerrero, he was serving as the CHCC Board of Trustees. and he approached the AG's office, and he was told that it was fine to serve as a board member on the board of trustees for CHCC and as secretary of, provided that it was up to him whether he could manage both duties.
I just want to add a point of information that's for the resident directors of the Road and Tinian. That is in the Constitution, but not for the Secretary of the main departments.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up in case it hasn't been addressed. Thought that was the only exemption for Road and Tinian because of the pool, and so maybe that's something that you can look into, so you're not violating any statutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mangoni. Just a couple of follow-up questions in line with his. He mentioned FESPAC. You requested 162,000, you said, from the House.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, that's the amount.
I also suggest that you reach out to the delegations, the local delegations, Saipan and Rhoda. Are you familiar that the former Indigenous Affairs resident executive, the late Ross Maglonia, came up with a budget for FESPAC? He has a very detailed budget. I can share that with you because he shared it with me last year. And his request totaled at least 359,000. So I can share that with you and see. I guess you could work with the Indigenous Affairs, Carolinian Affairs, MVA, so that you could see the details of what he was requesting them for, because he broke it down in great detail.
Right. Okay.
And I can share that with you. There was something else that came to mind.
Sorry, Chair. Acting Secretary, are you the point of contact for all things FESPAC?
No. In fact, the governor had appointed the former DCCA Secretary, Miss Margaret Sablan.
Thank you.
She's the chair of the FESPAC.
Okay. Going back to my line of questioning earlier about the Tinian Manamkunu lunch program or whatever. How does the organization work? Is the aging program in the municipalities under your umbrella as well? Or do they report to the municipal government?
No, they report to the municipal government, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I mean, as far as I know. The director of aging provides all the necessary support, i.e., food and supplies and whatnot, to Tini and Rhoda, but it's the resident directors that manage those sites.
Where does their funding come from? Funding for their personnel, for their operations?
That's from the mayors.
How about the supplies they use? Do they get any federal funding from your grants under aging program?
I do not believe so, but I do know that routinely the aging office, and as well as other divisions under DCCA, provide from anywhere from office supplies to fuel,
so
to
they assist
personnel. Yes.
They assist other divisions that
I can share with you the whole listing of all of those.
But they don't necessarily fall under the DCCA Office of the Secretary purview.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I just want to understand that. That's all I have in terms of follow-up. Are there any? Recognize Senator Corina Magofnia.
Thank you, Chair. Half a day, Tiro and Faisho, to you, Mr. Rebalaman, and to your supporters who are here in the chamber. Congratulations on your nomination, although you had shared with us earlier that you weren't as enthusiastic when you first found out about it. But now's your chance. Are you sure you still want to serve?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Thank you for accepting the nomination and for taking on the commitment with this very large department. I can only imagine the workload that comes with the position. So thank you again for your commitment. Um, just on the SNAP, you talked about the summer EBT. Is that a one-time program, or will this be an annual program?
It's going to be an annual program,
Okay.
and I believe this is the first year it's going to be instituted to be an
Awesome.
annual program.
Thank you for creating the program. I'm sure many of the families are now curious how much would their child be receiving when if this goes through or when it goes through per child.
So the latest calculation that I got was $177
Per
per
child.
child, uh, and fortunately, that's more than what the states are going to be receiving.
Great.
from
Thank
what
you
I
so
heard.
much for that assistance. Um, under NAP, I believe it's public knowledge, right, that there's some potential illegal activities taking place with the way the vouchers are being exchanged um, for monetary value. Uh, are you aware of that situation?
I've heard of it, and we do have investigators that try and go out there and investigate whatever allegations that they
Mm.
might come up. But I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, that and even this electronic EBT, then there's been documentation of how those could
Sure.
be, abused. So
So with that allegation, I'm sure you had just mentioned earlier that there like investigations are taking place. Any outcomes from those investigations yet, or they're still investigating?
the ones that I know are still ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any plans, maybe short-term plans for now while you guys are working on the SNAP program to combat that activity, that type of activity, because we are losing revenues when people do that, right? And there has to be some kind of consequence both to the recipient and to the
Sure.
store that is allowing that to happen.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure if you go to any of these mom and pop stores or any retail store that accepts these food stamps, it's very clear on what do's and
Sure.
don'ts, what you can do with it. And so I guess it's one of those very difficult to really control unless you're there 24/7 or whenever the stores open. But we just need to be as diligent as you can
Sure.
whenever you hear any of these allegations.
I mean, I completely understand. Um, sometimes these types of activities happen because of the circumstances and situations that our people are in, and I'm not saying I'm condoning. I'm just saying that I understand sometimes the situation, and when times are hard, people resort
Sure.
to they become creative, right?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we still need to comply with the federal requirements, you know um, of those funding assistance. So we just want to be mindful of that, because we also need to remind our people that we don't want those benefits taken away from them if they are caught abusing it, right, for not the right purposes. But I'm
Mhm.
curious, are these recipients required to submit their receipts for their purchases, like when they receive these? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the whole NAP program, so uh, forgive my my um, but are they required to provide receipts to substantiate the purchases for the vouchers that they receive?
God Almighty, you got me on this one, Senator. Even I'm not really sure how the process works, but I do know that there's a lot of validation that takes place each and every time. So, and there are checks and balances that happen between the retailer, the bank, and NAP itself, so that there's a, what goes out is definitely the same as what comes in, or
Mhm.
at least uh, you know it's accounted for. Um, but specifically to answer your question, honestly, I don't know if there's a receipt that they have to provide. Although I
It's
know
it's
that,
almost like a reconciliation, right?
right,
So if you receive a $300 NAP voucher, right, you should be able to provide $300 worth of receipts that are allowed for
right,
purchase with the voucher. And I'm curious if that's something that is in place, because that would greatly help curtail that.
right. What I do know is of course the front end to hand out those vouchers.
Mhm.
Those are very much in control. I mean,
Yes.
you have to control whatever goes
Yes.
out, right? And but coming back in, they get validated definitely through the banks, and but I don't know if it gets validated by individual consumer. uh I think what NAP looks at is basically how much goes out
Mhm.
and how much comes in, and of course there may be some reduction in what comes in,
Right.
maybe because they're still holding on to them,
Yeah.
or it got lost or whatnot.
I'm just trying to think of ways
Yeah,
to help the validation process. Not so much from when the vouchers are issued at the office, but when the vouchers go into the hands of the recipients,
right.
and then where it goes from there. And I bring this up because I've talked to many people who are not just recipients but also family members of the
Hmm.
recipients, and they
Hmm.
share the struggles that they experience, especially with recipients who maybe are not as responsible, right? But
Mm.
these vouchers are given to them to purchase the necessary food items for their children. But what they
Mm.
do in return is they exchange these vouchers for monetary value, and they go into these poker parlors and they spend all the money there, and then they go to their family members,
Hmm.
right, or friends, and they put the burden on their families to
Mm.
ask for money so that they could buy
Right.
the necessities for their kids. And it's just very heartbreaking to hear that that's what's going on. And we're trying to find ways to kind of curtail that, so that
Hmm.
the real intent of the voucher actually goes and benefits the children that are supposed
Right.
to be receiving these benefits. So I'm just curious if there's processes in place to
Mm.
ensure that these parents too are being held accountable, right? The recipients and even the retailers. So maybe uh, for another. That's another discussion in its own.
Right.
But I was just curious if you're aware of the allegations that are. I mean, I heard from recipients themselves, and uh, that they do that, and this is why I share that I understand some of the
Hmm.
situations that they are experiencing, because some of them say they have no choice because they need to pay their CUC, or
Hmm.
they need to buy diapers,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that's where you kind of look at it from a moral, like from a humane
Hmm.
standpoint, right?
Hmm.
And that's where I understand the need to do that. But for
Right.
for those who are abusing it and not really using the benefit to provide for their children, I think that's something very serious that we need to look into and address. But I just, if you
Sure.
weren't aware, I'm just
No, I'm fully aware. I mean,
okay.
I don't believe that this is isolated to the CNMI. I'm sure it's rampant all over the
Sure,
place.
sure.
But I do know that if there's a way to monitor between individuals, individual to individual, we'll try and find that. But uh, as we speak at this point, the enforcement is really at the retailer side,
Mhm.
and validating whatever comes back from the bank.
Okay. I mean, and I know this is not an issue just for NAP, right? This is also an issue on the revenue and tax side because they are also the enforcement agency that needs to be looking at how much money is coming into NAP program versus how much is being realized on the BGR side. So there has to be that reconciliation. And if you see a huge variance between what is coming in and what is not being collected, then obviously there's a problem. So this is not
Right.
solely on NAP. You know, it also involves other agencies, but uh, I'm just trying to see if there is a process that can be proactive.
Right.
I know that in the states, so if recipients are receiving supplemental income, that part of the requirement on a, I'm not sure if it's a monthly or quarterly basis, that they submit their spending report, you
Mm.
know, and with that spending report they attached all the receipts to validate or substantiate the claims on the report. So that was one of the ways for social security to ensure that the monies are being spent the way it was intended to you know, for the beneficiaries. So
Mhm, mhm.
just thought I share that with you.
Thank you, Senator.
On the HPO side, is the archaeologist still a vacant position, or has that been already filled?
So earlier there was a question of whether archaeologists. Right now, just to give you an update, we're very close to getting an archaeologist on board. One, it's very difficult to fill position, as many of you know. Um, we just recently had our SHIPO start Monday, this Monday. That's the director of HBO. We also had hired a couple of months ago a historian. Uh, so, um, I know that there was a comment made about the required staff, but I think with the HPO archaeologist, the uh, historian, and the SHIPO, that should be a substantial technical group that could really move forward with the HPO mandate. I know that in my conversations with NPS, they also made mention about an anthropologist. But I would like to start at first with these three technical people and move forward with. Mind you, there are a lot of technical folks as well on staff as we speak. People have been there for the longest time and have been, gone through a lot of trainings and pretty much. I know a couple of them who actually do 106 consultations for HBO, and even the archaeologists have sought advice from these two individuals. So yes, we need the credentialed archaeologists, but just so you know, we have very capable staff at HBO.
Okay, thank you for that update. And I asked that not because it was asked earlier, but you know, we've just been in discussions this week with MPOT, or not MPOT, but with CIP yesterday. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of projects taking places, right? And some of those CIP projects would probably need the assistance of HPO should, you know, artifacts be discovered, stuff like that. So with the absent the archaeologists right now, I'm trying to see whether it would have an impact on those projects. But
Um, I don't think so. We've been without an archaeologist for the past 3 months, and our Section 106s, which really requires the technical know-how. Those continue to move forward with these seasoned staff that have gone through those trainings. So I don't see that going to be a hindrance to moving forward with the projects. But I do know for a fact that our grant requires that we bring on board a SOI or Secretary of Interior um, credentialed archaeologist.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're 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 right there, almost at the finish line to get the archaeologists on board.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that update. And last, under the aging office, I'm just sharing this. It's been brought to my attention by one of the, I guess, elderlies who receive the lunch, right? And this individual does not want to be identified, but she was just, I think she shared with me that in the past their food was being prepared at the office, if I'm not mistaken, here on Saipan. Um, but I think that has changed, and now it's being catered. And she had shared with me that there have been times when the food is extremely salty, and so she wanted to know if the catering company or does the lunch menu is there a nutritionist that prepares or submits a recommendation to the office, or whether or not what is acceptable and not acceptable, especially to our elders, because they're a lot more
Yes.
sensitive to the kind of food that they consume.
Honestly, I'm not aware if we have a nutritionist on board, but I think that uh, it is in order. I mean, particularly as you mentioned, these are our elderly
Yeah.
that we're dealing with, and obviously, I can't imagine that we do have for the young kids at school. I can't see why we
Why not?
why not for
Yeah.
for our elderly. So yeah, I want to look into that and see if we
Just
can.
just to provide them with healthier
Yes.
food. I mean, they are certainly appreciative of the service, the food that they receive, but they're also mindful of their diet, and she was just concerned that many
Right.
times the food and it's very salty. And she also mentioned that they no longer get milk, which they used to do before, and now it's
Ouch.
just water. So
Ouch. That I'm not aware
Okay.
of, but I can
So I
definitely
mean, I'm
look into
thinking
it.
that this is where maybe the nutritionist will come in handy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
To recommend what is proper diet for
Yeah.
that age group. So
One thing that I can, if it's any consolation, the so all the aging lunch program is all catered out,
Right.
and they do cycle out every 3 months the caterer, and it's based on surveys, from what I understand, but based on surveys from the recipients, from the elderly. So if somebody is serving lunch that is too salty and it gets onto the survey, I'm sure in 3 months that
how
caterer,
often are these surveys done?
from my understanding, that they're done like every within that 3
So
months period.
okay, so after this particular vendor serves, then
Yeah.
they do a
Then
survey
they
too.
do a survey for the
Okay.
based on the next
Okay,
one.
so maybe then this vendor's not up yet, and then maybe by the
Right.
end of this
Right.
cycle,
Yeah.
and the survey goes out, then you will receive those
And I'm aware years ago that aging used to cater. I mean, contract out caterers years by years. So I thought that this was a very good approach in making sure everybody's accountable.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Okay. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you. Are you?
Thank you, Senator Magofnia. I will now recognize Senator Paul Minglonia.
Jesus Mangsi, Chair. Si Jesus Mangsi no secretary na nagseteste na appointment gini ni gobyerno tunga na dongklo na sakripisyo este pero sulesti no pambiro tati serbisyong gobernamento talo sa pang maingkadgan si dongkulon no department Jate mana ling mo front and center ste na department ginin para ginin padgun ste manamko todo no manera gi linala i komunidata no dan imano tauta no tibe na mega questiono sa utungan na iso esta mago po sa unsuliste na kadgo sa siyempre manalin mo na gi para masyafa po gi division ni department si Vision Manamku pa no programa kultura siya lo no tatungwa na imas dongkulo no ke na judul majesty ba ng food stamp no za mumite nga man si Senator Corina gi nigamnya za ni housing ne za bonito mga programa niya sa iji man majuda ji siya na manotauta i manggay problema gi destruction ni typhoons and no como typhoon related mamajuda gi gemania za magay uno gini beti no ti tagogo kumpli gi banda ni manama si na tautos ti low income ne no iji pata coordinate tourist siya ni sidadnya ginin health housing food stamp no education or programa siya ni jigwa sistementun para i low income za anafana suzu paguzi i como coordinate por exemplo esti listan iji siya na familia i munisita judo para food stamp dan iji siya na familia munisita judo para guma za no ane mangito sa mga ni administrator gi papa si Mr. Kimo Rosario si Melvin Sablon no linya na mamajuda kana 300 na familia logwa tetenan talo fanan kana 200 300 ni ji mamana aplika lo pude mana para 20 at tinungo watalo mas 300 mas como siga mababay programa na pues walang gibay sino nesti oji gi gobernamento gi alumi sistemata ne coordinate esti siya para tadbansa la niya mo na i manama si kogegeno gi CNCA or oji ko i private I mean i non-profit I mean ko i NMPASI and oji siya na group gwa dongkulo na umbrella organization ni mata nesti ni cosa kita tungo kwantu familiata no ko mas man leles na nama si na familia mo na or mas bumubula or no gekat gu gi gobernamento
Ano mo questionin no Senator istigo tungo na pasti gibandan food stamp na tatunga low income eligible gi food stamp no fair din no i lahi atan loki low income din no ato loki lo ekwa ko gwa
coordination no neji patalo istigi siya na familia za cosa kyang mabisongonyo afa mo na manasuzo mas destiny so originally ji disaster relief na housing program para loan depende ito mo income pues kwa loan pues tutungo ko ginigi man CCB food stamp ne ji esta tema tende na programa sa linya lani tisinya be fan loan na ti qualified zo para man loan low ikaw kontungo na nuevo na matalabira da mana grant pues man swerte ji siya man aplika na sa no saba pa loan pues man grant low kulang manasuzo na justicia i maman di CCB food stamp na gua 5 10 famagunia za timan za tunga na gua distrosunya gigimania lo timamanay grant for 200,000 the pamasa gimania na no sa gitutun para loan pues ma-convert to grant pues isa ko como guasti ki CNCA 20 na como sinan tutune no na programa ta identifica este siya familiata na iji manama si bula famagunia jangin gwasi na programa ta reach out para siya make sure na no mamanaplika or sa kumugwa na di bagdi na tagi no giveaway na tagi gitipon COVID gan manuno siya no mamatul man pila na kulain siya todo na no low para tamas reach out to them is guma no programang guma na siguro man ko sinya no man majuda na tagi antis gua farmers home loan is right no pagod ko lang gua binti timatungo na sinya gua no na programa lo mas zoom start na you know is ko gua mo reach out to no siya naman nama si dalo pamanaplika aday magwa mamamela talo programa na bandan solar taungog solar for all
Right.
sinya ring niyan mo mangito nya o siyempre man ma-check it lo adeno fa diningo na pues ta reach out pero no siya dalo make sure na no mamanaplikam no ta na siguro na no siya ta juzo na giputstam na Pergi man mi famago no farmajuda sa nispoko CUC bio no man najuda no mention estilo kisa unugwa gini kulan gimapu na sakan no anay ubisita na wapat gunya baba mataw niya gogo diyan teos niya no wire pues pegi siya from reach out no sinya na bandan ajudo gi health na pues no tegidi permanente long term na judo no soko na sinya guano gi jomo office ko saki no teatrasasaw benti sa sinya gua talo sa lapi gi housing za kumugumaji na sa lapi ta na siguro na esta ban district na identify no siya ta sonya logistiki siya ufan majuda ufan pona na no sa madede siya no za nispoko no ajudo esti debate
Right, right.
Pues sempre penti by reach out za nogo no siya na lista da coordinate da ni housing da ni solar project no be faz no za sepita que quintos mas por este CPI no gi para roda tinian lo que no tunga nesta gua no bueno na ma-aplica no few years back na ma-adjust no for cost of living no siguro ni consumer price index no na mauso sa no be faz no review fa no sa no por exemplo aberta na gini mampus efectus mampus guagua no luta na bena por exemplo 50 pound pugas kaulu akan na 55 pesos ti faungi no ti faungi no imano no yung case is 30 pound no kaulu agi 80 kana $90 iji 30 pound na fanan less than $30 gini no ji or quanto ji $40 betti gini no lo kulang doble i-presyo siya gi mampus no kulang guagua ni iji ke soba ante lacio gini fanan $12 or $11 iji ke soba gi za lutas ta kaula gi $20 na double pues kulang ni jeli ko ata na faneno za studiosi ma review i afa ma pipika na adjustment gi presenti no maka sa por exemplo esta fanan 4 meses di sinya man ma-move container ginin Guam or sa Ipan para rota sa di typhoon mafundo si barge gida Guam machuli si barge na umalum luta no pues esta pago iso i pat kun dikikya man ano kulan makat giza no tutungo fa nisita no I guess CPA o arrange eso mana gua bat ko na no sigiras lo punto gini coordination binti likon na binti
Right.
ako mas proper na department ang gintaza no ta ina ta mano na tanafan maatan isti siya programa
Right.
za cosa ki yung guano no pero program na ibula siya ta move no siya siya ta tendi finene na no ti taza baba bidan niya imiha binti sa they're just trying to move the money, the federal grant, and todo
Right.
na
Right.
low. For example, no give 48 million na free housing na grant na. I just wonder can see naman nun check isi atana siya gi man ma dongkulo na familia na manggay gima na manifekta na typhoon. I wonder quanto gida siya man apply na. No, it makes you wonder na no ko taas ni man na maseta ulo.
Clarification from Senator ko mamasin ako gua listan di poverty level na klase ni consistent across the board para zangin often assistance mababar para totoo sina taatan na ilista so nganin o siya man eligible. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I'm sure nagwalistan miso siya nene quanto na famagun gi familia janin na zuzuda no gi mes no pa food stamp.
Right.
Sipi sinya ista na identify
Yes.
200 na manama si na household, right? Galumene 200 na mas manama si. Check fang quanto no manmanoy gi mania. GST programa ni EDR neji mang neji galumene 200
Right.
check quanto mang qualify sa siya no mas manama si na tawtaw gi na residente gi Zamaranas no gi pera tinyan dutan sa ipan gi ajik for example gene 200 na mas na maseta ko quanto man majuda gi gima gi disaster relief neman qualified yan gi 200 no zakuski gigongwa additional funding ta request imia na ta target siya ta jura siya no finene na gi sti next kumwa next na juro na jan no kya jujuda sa dangin gwa typhoon otro mes za bulaman dinistrosa siya na familia debe siya pinene na fan ma reach out fan man apply fan hono sa gwazi mangitwa sa por ejemplo manyasaga gi housing no gi mia housing lo man qualified ta no gi kinemprendeo no man majuda sa no man tinik na afekta na typhoon they could have kinemprendeo siya no man apply da man manay mamamon guma o mamanasa nuibo na guma no pues pera de no lo que no ini mommy na masangane man si senator gi na meeting na gwaji 5 generations siga manyaga gi housing pues ofa programata na ta spiaje no za ufan atso gi low interest o tanagwa programa gi MPLT or the housing nejita na farmanoy low income low interest na ta saji guma kasi ufan mga gi sa isi pansage gi gimamu versus gi housing ti pareo na mas man ninay animo man ninay siya pa move up siya na
Gua question Senator Gino housing and I hope you have that information. Di bulat siya man gaijo homestead. Does NMHC accept homestead para di as a what do you call this? Nangin paraitano ni pumanoy gato as a requirement? Oh, it's a case by case.
Na case by case siya mga prebas no na NMEDR disaster relief housing program.
So ma accepta homestead. I don't know that. I didn't know that.
Jadi pemamanya fananti sinya matina subdivision na sa
Right.
como ma subdivision eso depois pofan ma blanket along na program tisinya sa pinya gua discrimination sa ti NMD na gua ti NMD lo como case by case un sinya na di kada aji guys a lot direct gua.
Right. So bulad siya
Lo está
tinian.
atrasado, está hukuk
atrasado?
sa lapi na, está
Oh, wow.
hukuk sa lapi. Ella está mapreba gi negwa sa lapi. No lo está tauza lo sinya guma no ligninia talo como matan nationwide todo siya nasakan na fiscal year da gua sobla sinya manoy talo sinya mais da generally ko sinya gua didi talo za como ta identify no siya gua atan i mizo criteria penatan Ozi siya na mandongkulo na familia na 5, 6 mamagunia pa dulo ta identify no siya za ozi no siya no pwede si manggay gima na sa isi housing biti little bit different lo isi private na guma sin siya para pa siya siya ta target za ta na fan mazuda finene na no before mababa yung application para i-general public I think na ta focus guate que no siya gista tatungo na mapusa man low income na no dahil dyan could devi mo gwa better coordination na no ti pata tinonga pata nunsya sa gitutunan na manunsya ilig niya no based on income no logwana izinama si tawza pagod niya masususo no za pues sipiti man aplika lopos na mo ma-convert ilig niya free grant man miss out todo siya he would have been helped no pues lo como está gualistata no consistently na cada year nagwalista no tinisaro para gua tigo bonito pon lista na familia na lo siya na identify by number per often na kada gua programa hindi siya ta reach out ta ajuda na no thank you no gua mas tempo in the future siya manali appreciate.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Are there any other members who wish to go for a second round? If there are none, Mr. Frank Rabalman, committee is always impressed with your articulation of the knowledge in government. You've worked in the government for 30 years. Obviously, you're well-rounded to
Thank you,
reply to our questions. For that, I thank you, and you are hereby dismissed.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have miscellaneous. Is there any announcements to be made from the members? If there are none, can I get a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Thank you. A motion has been made and it has been seconded. Are there any objections to the motion? There being no objections raised, this meeting is hereby adjourned at 5:05 p.m. Thank you.